Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another exciting set of online notes. I'm your favorite, Miss Dodge. We are going to cover feudalism today. We're going to extend our Middle Ages notes. We're going to know about what is it like to live in the Middle Ages. These should be the next set of blank notes in your notebook. I believe, if I remember correctly, that they are bright blue and they should start with the word feudalism at the top. Feudalism, feudalism. And that's partly what we're going to talk about today, among some other exciting things. All right, let's dive right in. So, we just talked about in our last set of notes about what is the Middle Ages, what's happening. At the end of the Roman Empire, we have no defense system. We have no really structured, powerful government, and therefore we are not able to have a structured, organized military. So anytime that there was an invasion, say from those pesky Germanic tribes, there was no formal military to say, hey, get out here and defend everybody. We were just kind of hoping you could defend yourself. So, in order to try and stay safe from these invasions, especially from the Germanics and another group of people we're going to learn about called the Vikings, people entered into something called feudal agreements with people who owned land. They ended up being called lords. So at this time, not a lot of people owned land. Land was concentrated among not that many people, meaning a handful of people, a couple of people owned a lot of land, and a lot of people owned no land. So here's the kind of structure. Here's their feudal agreement, their feudal contract. The peasants who didn't own any land agreed to work on the Lord's land. In exchange for that work and some taxes and stuff, the Lord would pay to have a private military who would protect this little land bit in the event that they were attacked. So this is our feudal agreement. Work in exchange for protection. Work for protection. And some taxes. Okay, and here we are making our feudal agreement. See, we got people swearing, and there's like a king and stuff. I don't know what's wrong with, he looks sick. Anyway. All right, so here's some vocab we need to know for this feudalism unit. So lords are very powerful men. They're rich and they own a lot of land. The land was given to them by the king. We talked about how we have a bunch of mini kingdoms. The kings, they own a lot of land. They give it out to their little faithful, oh, king, you're so wonderful. And the king's like, oh, I know, here's some land. All right, so these are our lords. They're powerful, they're rich, and they have a lot of land that the king has given them. Okay, then we have lesser lords called vassals. Vassals. And these are still kind of rich, not as rich as the lords of the king, but definitely better than some of the lower classes. And their responsibility is to manage an even smaller piece of this land. So the king gives the lord land. The lord chops it up and gives pieces to the vassals. Okay. Their responsibility is to be basically the property manager. They run everything. They manage the people that live on the land, that work on the land. They are the management level. Okay. A piece of land during this time period is called a fief. A fief. That's what this word is, fief. Okay, and this is just a chunk of land. That's just what they called it. The land that the Lord gives the vassal, the little chunk, is called a fief, a plot of land. All right, the lowest level here, please note really quick that this is a person. This is a person. This is a plot of land. This is not a person. So in the event that you are asked to give the rankings of social structures, please do not write fief, okay? This is a land. This is not person. This is ground. The lowest level in our social structure is the serfs. Serfs. Not like surfboarding in the ocean. That would have a U here. Serf with an E is basically a peasant farmer, and these are the ones who are usually doing the work for protection. Now, it's very important. They are not slaves. They are not slaves. They do have a bunch of restrictions that might make you think they're slaves, and we'll talk about those later in these notes, but they are not slaves. They are not property. They are not technically purchasable. It's not an item. They are sort of free, sort of not. It's weird. We'll talk about that, I promise. But these are our lowest class, our farmers, our peasants, our run-of-the-mill average Joes. Okay. In feudalism, this class structure that we just talked about is very rigid, meaning serfs are not going to become vassals. Vassals are not going to become lords. Lords are not going to become a king. Everything is exactly the way you were born. So if you were born a serf, you're going to marry a serf, and you're going to die as a serf. Your kids will be serfs. That's how this works. You're not going to move up the ladder. Okay? And again, this is another point of what we just said earlier, right? In exchange for land and protection, vassals pledge their loyalty and their military service to the lord. So the vassals make up the lord's military in the event that they were attacked by something, right? And again, we see another, he looks like he's pledging service to some sort of king or lord. All right. Okay. Now, let's talk about the manor system. The manor system is like the basic unit of feudalism. I'm sure in math class or in science class you've talked about units of measurement. For the feudal system, the unit of measurement is the manor. What is a manor? A manor is the lord's estate, where the lord lived. And this is basically the main house, right? The fancy castle-ish kind of thing. And then the little village where all the serfs live, and maybe like an okay house where the vassal lived. There may be a few villages, at least one, definitely, and the whole manor is run by serfs. Serfs are farmers, they are the priests, they are the blacksmiths, they are the bakers, they run this manor. Who run the manor? Serfs. Serfs, so this is the point where we were talking about here, how I said you might think that they are slaves, okay? Serfs are tied to the land, meaning if the lord were to lose the land or give it away or something happened, the serfs go with it. The serfs don't get fired and then they hire different serfs. The serfs stay to the land. So if for some reason the land transfers power, you get the serfs. The manor is also almost entirely self-sufficient. It farms the food that they need, then whatever wheat or grain was grown goes to the millinery. So when they ground it up, you get flour. There's a bakery shop there where they turn the flour into bread. You can buy bread. There's a blacksmith shop, so anything metal that needs to be fixed or repaired or purchased, right, that is purchased there. The church is there. There's everything that you need is there. And if it's not there, you don't get it. Okay, there is no trade happening during this time. So it's not like, oh, let's just get it imported from China. No. If you didn't have it in the manor, if it wasn't on the manor, you're not getting it. All right, so here's a diagram of what a manor might look like. So here's the main manor house. This is where the lord or the vassal would live. There's multiple fields, right, where they would grow different things. Sometimes leave it open for fallow, which means you don't grow anything in the field to allow it to the soil to recover. And look at all these things we've got. We've got a church, we've got a barn for animals, there's the well, there's an inn. There's not a ton of traveling going on, but that's basically like a hotel. The water mill, so this is a river you can see, and this is where they would grind wheat into flour and stuff like that. Workshop, that's probably where the blacksmith or other artisans would work. Pastures, right, so you could see some little animals in here. And then houses for our little serfs, our little farming average Joes, yes. And these are entire units. We see these spring up all over the countryside of these various European mini kingdoms. Okay? Okay. Oh, sorry, I don't know what that was. So the serfs basically, look how sad he looked. Oh, look, woe is me, I am digging. Serfs work the land for several days a week, and they do all of the manual labor. So any, we talked about this, blacksmiths, milliner, um, baker, herdsman who tends to like the cows and stuff. They are the ones who do all of the manner. Here's some more points as to why we may think the serfs are slaves, but they're not. Okay. Serfs had to actually ask for permission if they wanted to leave the estate to travel or to get married. So that kind of sounds a little bit like slavery, but it's not. Okay. Serfs paid taxes several times a year. And in exchange for working and paying taxes, they received protection, military protection, from the lords and from the vassal in the event that the manor would be attacked by invaders. Yes, so there's our feudal contract again. In exchange for protection for work, work for protection. Okay. The church has in no way diminished its power. We talked about how when governments start to lose authority, people are turning their focus and their, attention to the church. The government is not there to provide for their needs, but the church is, especially the Catholic Church. Remember that the Catholic Church is a branch of Christianity, just like the Byzantines had a different branch of Christianity called Orthodox Christianity. Catholicism, Catholic Church, is still Christian, it's just a different branch. The Catholic Church really takes on handling for social and religious needs of the people, right? So priests do things like sacraments, like they handle the marriages, or they handle funeral processions, or when a baby is born, they handle baptisms, and usually with that comes a form of birth certificates. These are what we call sacraments in the Catholic Church. But they also did other things that aren't necessarily tied to religious components. They provided basic education, right? While we are not learning like new things during the Middle Ages, we still preserve basic literacy and such. So the Catholic Church is responsible for basically basic literacy, teaching reading and writing at a very low level to these serfs. They also care for the poor in a number of ways. The government had been doing this by providing food and such, but without a structured government, we still have to take care of people who need help. And the church really takes this on. They set up orphanages for children who have lost both of their parents. They set up, basic food delivery, right, for people who aren't able to feed themselves for some reason. So they're taking on a lot of these social aspects as well as basic religious things that we would expect the church to do. And this might be some sort of marriage. I see she's got a bouquet and they're holding hands. This is probably some sort of wedding. Okay. All right, let's talk about the Catholic Church, okay? If you are Catholic, this should hopefully be old news to you. If you are not Catholic, unfortunately, we do have to recognize these vocab words. The SOL may ask you about any of these things. So top dog, number one, we've already talked about, is the Pope. The Pope is the head of the church. He's also technically classified as a church noble, but popes are not supposed to have, lots of fancy things. They're not supposed to spend a ton of money. They're not what we would usually classify as a noble, as a rich person, right? So the Pope is top dog, okay? The next level below the Pope are a series of cardinals. And there's I want to say 30 of them. There might be more, I don't know. Or maybe less. Cardinals, I like to think of the bird, right? The cardinals are usually bright red, and that's actually pretty accurate because these guys, if you Google pictures of cardinals, their outfits are literally bright red, like fire engine red. These are advisors to the Pope, and they're also technically church nobles. If we were in class, I covered it up. If we were in class, we'd watch this video at the bottom. If you want to learn about how to be a pope, you can Google it. Look it up on YouTube. But the next pope, when a pope either dies or resigns, and we need to pick a new pope, it is chosen usually from the cardinals, or the cardinals are the ones who decide, and they usually choose one of themselves to become the next pope. The next level down is archbishop and bishop. These are technically the same level. It just depends on how much, basically, territory they have power over. Okay? An archbishop presides or leads over an archdiocese. This is the word I'm saying, archdiocese. And a bishop precedes over a regular diocese. And the only difference between bishop and archbishop is the size of their diocese. A diocese, regular diocese, is something smaller, like a big city, but not that big, right? Like Pittsburgh, Richmond, maybe even like Harrisonburg and Winchester combined, right? Kind of smaller-ish cities. An archbishop is the leader of an archdiocese, which are a much larger version of a regular diocese. Think of big cities like New York City, Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, etc. So these are much larger. Same job. The only difference in their title is how much land they are responsible for. And what is a diocese? A diocese or an archdiocese is the area within churches. So it's also sometimes called a parish. Okay, and it's just kind of chunks up authority so that we don't have people trying to, be responsible for or watch over large pieces of land. Lastly on our list is the parish priest, and this is just the regular old priest. If you go to church, that's the parish priest. He's the head of the local church and the people who attend it. And there are multiple parishes and multiple parish priests within a diocese, especially within an archdiocese. Okay. Excuse me. Becoming pope is a very long and tedious process. That's why most of the popes are really old. This is our current pope. If I remember correctly, he is the first pope to be born in South America, I'm pretty sure. If I remember correctly, he is Argentinian, which is quite cool. I'm pretty sure he's the first pope to be from South America, and he might be even the first pope not from Europe. Crazy. Definitely I know first pope from South America though. Like I said, I'm like 85% he's Argentinian. From Argentina. Okay, so there's our Catholic Church. These are our steps of the Catholic Church. We also have some separate, I don't know kind of exactly where they fall in the Catholic Church, but we have a version of priests that are called monks. Monks live in monasteries. This is a cartoon of a monk. A monk is somebody who goes to work in a monastery, and they basically pledge their whole life to the church. They never get married. They never date or have children or anything like that. They basically go to church service every day, and sometimes they'll farm, right? Usually there's farmland for the monasteries, or they'll rewrite things. A lot of the monks were the ones who copied texts, rewrote texts from Greece, Rome, etc. And then they would just like pray and like sing songs and stuff. The monks are important because they continue to preserve Greco-Roman texts. Okay, remember I said Greco-Roman means Greek and Roman. We've said this point a lot about a lot of civilizations we've talked about. A lot of people saved Greek and Roman texts. And at this point you may feel like, I'm tired of hearing about that. Why is it so important? If everybody's doing it, why does it matter? Because that's how we know these things. It's very likely that if any one of the people we've talked about who have preserved Greek and Roman texts, if any one of them threw them away, we wouldn't have any of the information we have about Greece and Rome. Think about how big our Greece and Rome units were. That's been a large chunk of our time in this class so far. The only reason we know so much about Greece and Rome is because multiple people took the time to save these writings. It's very important. In more Western European, think Byzantine, think Italy, Western Europe. Most of the things they were writing were Roman, right? Because that's where they were near. The Byzantines in the East mostly preserved Greek texts because they were closer to Greece than they were to Rome. Yes. Either way, they worked together to save these texts and allow us to learn about Greece and Rome like we do today. Okay? Monks also did something kind of interesting. They created things called illuminated texts or illuminated manuscripts. The word illuminated means lit up, right? The sun illuminates the sky, right? It lights up everything. That's what illuminated means. A flashlight illuminates the dark. And that's kind of what these were. So they were normal texts. A manuscript is just another word for text, something written down. They basically just add illustrations, pictures, color, fancy letters, and designs that make these plain, boring books into more exciting things that people might want to read. Okay? Some more examples of illuminated manuscripts. So we can see they've added pictures, they've added large letters, color here and there, okay? And this is what I think of when I think of illuminated manuscripts.
How it looks so far.
Oh, there was SpongeBob's illuminated manuscript, right? He had that fancy, go back and see. Stop it. He had that fancy right? Lots of design, lots of curly cues. This is a version of an illuminated manuscript. So when you see that term, you can think of SpongeBob and his illuminated manuscripts. Yes? Alrighty. Oops, that's not the button I wanted. Okay, well, we'll just have it this. Hey, that worked. Alrighty, now on the left side of your notes, okay, on that blank left side, you know the drill. Here's our exit ticket for today. It is a 3, 2, 1. Please write me 3 interesting things you learned today. Please write me 2 new vocabulary words we learned about with their definitions. Okay, we learned, I can think of 10 off the top of my head. So you should have no trouble finding 2, only 2. And then I want to know what one question you still have is. Remember that I'm not numbering these for order. I want 3 separate interesting things, 2 separate vocab words, and 1 question. So you should have 6 things written down. 3 plus 2 is 5, plus 1 is 6. We had 6 things written in our notes. Yes? I also posted yesterday your Dark Ages game board, your Middle Ages game board that we talked about in class. Should be working on that when we find some time. Remember, there is extra credit opportunity in that. Some people are taking advantage of that and currently have like 120% in my class. That's the only thing we've done so far this quarter. Yes? Please feel free to ask me questions if you have any questions or are confused with anything. I'm still technically working, so I would love to answer emails, questions, concerns for you. Yes? All right, everybody. Have a lovely, safe Wednesday.